Okay guys, I know it's July, but it's time for some spooky stories. I know that real estate seems like it's all fun and games and like everything always goes smooth, and when you're on social media you're always seeing like, oh, I sold this house, or I sold this house, or congrats to this client or that client. But honestly, sometimes the crap hits the fan, and I'm gonna share a few stories with you today, so stay tuned. Now, before we get into these stories, if it's your first time on the channel, welcome, or if it's not, welcome back. But if it is your first time on the channel, I want you to go ahead and click that subscribe button and then click the little bell right next to it to notify you every time I post a new video. I post videos every Tuesday and every Saturday, so make sure to come back and check them out. We really just focus on the Kansas City area as a whole, maybe different suburbs, Lee Summit, Blue Springs, things like that. Feature local businesses, talk about the market, what's going on, things like that. So if that's your style of video, or you just like learning about new markets, definitely check it out, subscribe. Or maybe you're thinking about moving to Kansas City. This is definitely the channel for you. I would love to help you when you move to Kansas City. I am a licensed agent in the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri. So make sure to reach out, shoot me a text, shoot me an email, give me a call, whatever. Find me on social media, whatever works best for you. Reach out and let me help you find your dream home. All right, now let's get to it. Here are some horror stories of real estate. Okay guys, so I got 3 stories for you today. 3 kind of, they're horror-ish stories. They're just stories of things that can go wrong in real estate, right? When you're looking to buy or sell a home, okay? So first story, buyer and seller. And before I get into this, I'm not going to tell you which side I was on in any of these stories. I'm just going to tell the stories kind of from a factual basis, right? So first story, buyer and seller. Seller sells the home. This was probably a year and a half-ish ago, so market was still super hot, right? About a year and a half ago, seller sells the home, buyer buys it. Probably a couple months after buyer moves in, they find a leak in the basement, a lot of water coming in, right? Get somebody to come out to look at it, and lo and behold, they find a bunch of mold in the basement, like up in the rafters, right? Definitely not a good situation. Buyer went back and looked at the seller's disclosure from when they bought it, and the seller had never indicated that there was any water issues or any mold issues or anything like that, all having to do with the foundation of the house, right? So obviously there we had what's called a disclosure issue at that point, and the buyer sued the seller for both repairs and for emotional distress and for having to find a new place to stay while mold remediation was going on, and a couple other things, right? So it was tens of thousands of dollars in this lawsuit, okay? And the way that they were able to prove that the seller knew about the issue, because you know, you can mark no on the seller's disclosure, and if you don't know what was happening, then it's not a big deal, right? But this buyer got a hold of some neighbors who gave her other contact information. She got a hold of those people, and come to find out, the seller had been notified that there were issues with water coming in the basement. So they had done some repairs to fix what was causing that, and if they would have disclosed that information, hey, the basement was leaking because XYZ, I did XYZ to fix it, and it hasn't been an issue since. If they would put that in the seller's disclosure, they would have been fine. They didn't though. They just said that there were no issues, and got sued for tens and tens of thousands of dollars, and ultimately settled out of court. So you know, that's definitely not a good situation for either buyer or seller to be in. Buyer's super excited to get into the house. Come to find out there's a lot of problems with the house, and then they have to go through all the inconveniences of moving out while mold remediation is going on, having all the workers in, doing all the repairs, all that stuff. Not to mention having to deal with hiring an attorney, filing lawsuits, all that. Not good on the seller. because they're having to deal with all that, especially if they moved out of state, then they're having to deal with everything back here from afar, and just really not a good situation. So again, it's something that could have been prevented. Unfortunately, it wasn't, and it turned into pretty much a horror story. So that's story number one. Okay, so story number two. All right, I feel like I should do a whole segment, and maybe I will in the future, on the top like 3 things or the top 5 things on what not to do when you're looking to buy a home. So that might be a future segment, okay? But one of those things is making large purchases right before you close on your home, okay? Especially if you're not through the final underwriting, okay? So this one, I'll tell you, I did have a buyer on this one, okay? And we sold their house. They were looking to buy a new house, and they barely qualified for this new property, right? Both due to credit score and debt to income ratio, okay? Both very important things when you're trying to buy a house. And they barely qualified, right? And the lender told them, and I told them, hey, don't go make any big purchases, you know, until we get closed on your house. We don't want anything getting messed up, things like that. Well, they didn't think it was a big purchase. So they went to a local furniture store, opened up a new line of credit, and bought some new furniture for the house, new appliances, new furniture, before they gone through final underwriting. So when it went time to go through final underwriting, they pull all your credit and your debt to income ratio again. And guys, when I say they barely made it, I think they made it by like 2 points on their credit score. Like, so if they needed, just for example, let's say they needed like a 650, they had like a 652. Like, they barely made it, right? So had they not made it, let's say it dropped to like a 645. Let's say it dropped 7 more points, it was at 645, and they could no longer get qualified for the house. That means right before they bought the house, because usually that clear to close is what it's called when it goes through final underwriting and you get final authorization to purchase the home. Usually happens like a week before close, sometimes only 2 days before close. So we're talking like the very end of the transaction, right? So if they would have gotten denied at the very end and they couldn't have bought the house, man, that's really tough for the seller who'd been under contract for 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks, and then all of a sudden they have no buyer, they're having to go back on market. It's bad for the buyer, they can no longer afford the property. Man, if we've already sold their house and they're under contract and we can't back out of that one, now what? Now they literally don't have a house to move into. So it was this close to being a really big horror story for them. Luckily, it all worked out okay. They closed on the property. They still live there today, and they're making memories with their kids and absolutely loving their new house. So that's story number 2. Do not go make any purchases at all, you know, unless it's like groceries or gas or whatever, normal living expenses. Don't make any purchases without talking to your lender until you close. All right, guys, third and final horror story. Okay, so again, I'm not gonna reveal if I was on the buyer or sell side on this one either, but couple trying to sell their house. It's on market, it's under contract, okay? So things are moving along pretty smoothly, and sellers go out of town on vacation, out of the country, okay? And somehow, some way, we still don't know to this day exactly why it happened, but it's a 2-story home with a finished walkout basement, and one of the toilets on the 2nd floor started overflowing while they were on vacation, okay? Again, nobody's there. Nobody hears the water running. They were gone for an entire week, okay? Nobody hears the water running. Nobody sees anything. Nobody's using the bathroom. Don't know how long it had been going on, but one of the neighbors came over to check on one of that household pets of that household, and walks in, and there was water everywhere. I'm talking coming through the ceiling on the 1st floor, right? Because the toilet was on the very top floor, so it's coming through the ceiling on the main floor, like pouring through light fixtures, running down the walls, right? Like everywhere. And then it was a finished basement. It was going down through the main floor, down into the basement of the house, dripping on the pool table, getting the carpet all wet. It was a complete nightmare, right? So obviously those buyers backed out. because the house was significantly damaged. They had to get a professional cleaning crew to come in while they're out of the country, had to get this lined up, come in, pull up carpet, rip down drywall, plumber to fix the toilet, dryer, fans, dehumidifiers, all that stuff, get the whole house dry, replace wood that was damaged, because you don't want to cover back up and have mold in the future, right? Get all that stuff repaired, and then they had to redo everything, get it back the way it was looking, and then get their house back on the market and find another buyer and start that whole process all over again. It took months, you guys. So I would say probably the lesson on that one, and it's something that I do after hearing that story myself, is if I'm going out of town, I go down to the main water valve, it's in my basement, and I turn that thing off coming from outside into the house. I just turn it off, and that way nothing can run. If a pipe breaks, yeah, it's going to leak a little bit because you do have residual water left in your water lines, but once that leaks out, you don't have water just continuing to run and run and run for days at a time, right? So it was definitely not a good situation. In the end, they did get their house relisted, and it did sell. So it worked out okay in the end. It just caused a lot of grief and headache in the meantime. Okay, so as you see, it's not all fun and games and easy and smooth sailing when it comes to selling real estate. So these are just 3 examples. You guys, I could probably, I don't know, come up with another 6, 7, 8 right off the top of my head, but just wanted to share with you some horror stories that I personally experienced. I read more horror stories every day on social media with some of my other real estate friends in other states that they share. It can definitely be a tricky situation when you're looking to buy or sell a house. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, again, click that subscribe button, click the notification button so you can see other videos. And if you're looking to move into Kansas City, as much as I do love shooting these videos for you, I am a licensed realtor in the state of Kansas and in the state of Missouri, and I would love to help you find your dream home. So definitely reach out, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, and until next time, have a great day.